I often hear time and time again that the hardest thing about money is not making it, but keeping it. While that may be true, making it, the part, making it shouldn't be a slept-on part of the process. The act of starting anything for the first time, whether it's a new podcast, a business venture, a savings goal, fitness goal, etc., the act of starting anything can be daunting, especially if it's something that you don't really have too much information about or too much experience doing or too many resources that can help you achieve that end. Take me with this podcast, for example. Yeah, I've listened to a podcast over the years, a couple podcasts here and there, but I actually don't have experience creating in this medium. So some of the things that I'll do with this podcast, it may seem familiar, whereas there's some other things that might seem unconventional. So in my journey of creating this podcast, there have been a couple of things that I've had to learn and relearn. On today's episode of Underground Genius, I'll be going over 7 key ideas, and I'm hoping that you can take away something from this episode. So let's get right to it. Number 1, clearly defining your goals to your audience. With something like a personal goal, like a savings goal or a fitness goal, for example, your audience is just yourself. So clearly identifying what it is that you're trying to do with this goal that you've set for yourself, that's one of the best ways in ensuring success, long-term success. Whereas if there are any external components to your venture, like a business, for example, your audience could be your listeners, your viewers, your followers. It could be your business partners. It could be investors. Anybody who you're looking to them as people who will be able to support you. In no unsure terms can you communicate whatever it is that you're trying to do, especially if it's to multiple people, just so that you can ensure that there's a clear idea throughout your entire audience of what it is that you're trying to do. With all that being said, I kind of want to make something clear, even though it might not have been. Underground Genius is not just a music podcast, and I'll repeat that. Underground Genius is not just a music podcast, and I know that could be a little bit confusing considering what the last 3 episodes were. I'll get to why I did that the way it is, but I will be covering a lot of music. As you can see, my interest in the creation, the consumption, and the distribution of music should have been apparent in the last 3 episodes, but it's part of a larger objective that I had to cover several different topics and ideas through several different mediums and several different industries. So, of course, not only well-defined and well-outlined goals will help onlookers, will help your audience identify whatever it is that you're trying to do, but it'll also allow you to set proper expectations for your goal. It'll allow you to have an idea of what your finished product should look like. So that's number 1, clearly setting or clearly describing your goals and your intentions to your audience. Number 2, doing too much or making overambitious goals may yield low-quality results. Within the last 10 years, I've taken on many roles. I was a rapper, a producer, an audio engineer, a journalist, a designer, a writer, and a whole bunch of other things. And the only thing that's really come into the public eye is this podcast and some of my journalism. And one of the things that I was trying to do was I wanted to take on all these roles just so I could have the most creative control around or over my product. My thing at the time was music, so I wanted to make sure that all components of it, whether it was the graphics or whether it was how it sounded, the beats, things like that, I wanted to control everything. And with me taking all of those roles, I felt like if I had control over everything, then my desired product would come out exactly how I envisioned it in my head. And I couldn't have been more wrong. What that resulted in was basically me never mastering any one of those professions. Probably the closest I would say, as far as mastery is concerned, I've come to mastering anything was writing and journalism. But even that's like a strong maybe. What would have happened if I relinquished control and if I would have allowed outside individuals to help me through my process was I would have been able to master maybe one or two of those things. And I would have been able to produce very high quality art. I would have had an easier time doing so as opposed to what I chose to do for sure. And in this, I'm not saying that you shouldn't attempt to be multifaceted. By all means, if you're able to do so, please go ahead. Like, look at me. I'm recording the audio for this, but I'm also trying to film this, and I'm also trying to do a whole bunch of other stuff for it too. So if you're able to do that, then by all means, go for it. But accepting a bigger plate than you can handle is a likely recipe for forthcoming unmitigated failure. Take for example, I went back to the gym last year, 2019. I went back to the gym for the first time in quite some time. It's probably like a couple of years. And my goal was I just want to I just wanted to become more muscular everywhere. So what I did was the first day I went back to the gym, I went on every single machine and I lifted every single weight that I possibly could. And thinking like, if I continue to do this over time, then I see the results that I wanted to see. Obviously, that was not a bright decision. And the next day I wasn't able to move that much. And I pretty much learned my lesson after that. But the next time that I went to the gym, I had a plan of attack. And with that, I was able to not only form consistent habits, but I was able to see short-term and long-term results, ones that I was more than satisfied with. So one of the goals that I have, speaking of goals, the last two things that I spoke about had to do with goals and how you should approach them. One of the goals that I have for this podcast is to highlight creators in several different industries. I've said this multiple times. Like, for example, if you're watching this on YouTube, you see the animations, or if you're listening to this, you hear the music that's being played. And of course, over time, I want that to evolve. So recently, I actually connected with this producer out from Las Vegas, going by the name of Action Banks. Banks has had production credits for artists such as Freddie Gibbs, Chewy, Young Roddy, and Blair North. And he could also speak to the process of starting something new as he's currently developing his brand, Homebody. And with that came his transition from producing traditional rap beats to more lo-fi stuff. Like the one that's currently playing. The name of this beat is Homebody, same as the name of his brand. Homebody you can actually find on streaming services. And if you wanted to take a look at more of his material, listen to some of the beats that he's made, or just keep up with what he's doing, you can find him on social media. His Twitter at action_bank, so that's singular BANK. Or you can find him on Instagram like I did, so action_BANKS. For the time being, let's let this play out, and I'll be right back. Let's move right along. The number 3 thing Invest as much as you need to on the things that you need, but understand that the most expensive thing will not equate to instant success or any success for that matter. So let's rewind to one of my favorite eras that I was alive for, the early 2010s. Definitely some good times, the early 2010s. One of the things that I remember from this era was, and especially you could probably relate to this if you lived in a densely populated city or an urban city. One of the things that I remembered was everybody became a photographer. Everyone all of a sudden became a freelance photographer. And this was mainly due to the fact that the technology in cameras was advancing, but cameras were also becoming a lot cheaper. You couple that with the rise of social media and the need for posting high quality pics or soliciting others to help take high quality pictures for yourself. That's what created this oversaturation. And I'll actually talk about that in my next episode next Sunday. So, and this is especially true if you lived in New York, the easiest way to tell if somebody was a photographer was by their outfit. And you know the one I'm talking about. Talking about the denim jacket. You know, you got the denim jacket on. You got the green of the khaki chinos. And then of course, you cannot forget about that nasty fedora. They all had the same fedora, especially if you were in Soho. Any block on Soho at any given moment, you look up, you see about 3 of them. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And to take that even further, a lot of those same photographers, especially at that time, a lot of those same photographers were trying to coerce all the women to do a nude photo shoots. I remember that era. You know, I had a whole bunch of homegirls who told me that they were getting approached by a bunch of people who wanted to do shit like that. And I remember that. A lot of the women let them strange men and their fedoras coerce them into going back into their Airbnb or their basement or some shit with lines like, yo, honestly, like, I feel like the shoot that we could do, it'll be done very, very tastefully. I remember that, shorty. Don't worry about it. You don't like to talk about it, but I definitely remember. So, around that time, I also got a camera. I promise you it's not for the aforementioned reasons. A lot of my homies, they were into fashion, and of course, I was still into the music. So I thought if I could do their shoots for their brands or whatever, and if I could shoot my own music videos, that's like 2 birds in 1 stone. So what I did was I just bought the most expensive camera and gear that I could afford at that time. And I just let the camera do the work for me. And at first, it was working. You know, I had a whole bunch of people tell me like, yo, the quality of your work is really good. Like, yo, your shit is dope. And I would start to go on shoots. I start to get booked for shoots. And it was cool until those shoots started to become more professional. And that's when I started to struggle. I started to struggle a lot because although I was letting the very good cameras do the work for me, I wasn't really doing the work for myself. Whereas a lot of my friends who were also photographers with significantly cheaper camera and gear than what I owned, they were excelling and their work was far superior to mine just because of the fact that they did the work and they were willing to dedicate themselves to that craft and learn everything that was needed and necessary for them to be working professionals. And even speaking on that, going back to all of those roles, you know, a photographer, a rapper, a producer, all that shit, I actually recently calculated how much that cost me. And not even over the last 10 years, over the last 3 years, just the act of just throwing my money at what I deemed to be the best gear and the best products to help me do whatever it was that I was trying to do. MSRP values everything at about $14,000 within the last 3 years. I finagled a few bagels, so of course I didn't pay that amount. I paid about $8,000. But when you're in as much student debt as I am, that's still a lot of bread. That's still a lot of money, for sure. So the key takeaway is understand what to invest in And a sizable investment may not always be the best thing, whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's resources. Just if you're going to invest into something, just make sure it's a necessity and spend in moderation. Spend your time wisely. Spend your money wisely, you know? All right, so number 4, there's no such thing as a true waste of time. I'm talking about experiences. Well, I'm talking about a whole bunch of things, but there's no such thing as a true waste of time. Reinforce the things that work, abandon, or if possible, repurpose the things that don't. So going back to my years as a photographer, let me just state that I never want to work as a photographer for the rest of my life. I never want to do that again. And shout out to the work. The work was fun, all that bullshit, but I just don't want to do it. However, a lot of those skills that I've learned through photography, I'm applying right now, even with things such as rapping or producing or audio engineering. I use those skills whenever I'm like my ear has been developed so that I'm able to curate music or I'm able to mix and master certain things in a certain way. So even though I'm not actively participating in any of those mediums currently, I'm still applying those skills. I've repurposed everything that I was using before just for the purpose of this podcast. And I believe that shouldn't go just for the things that you've learned, but it can also be for your experiences as well, like the things that you interact with. So early in my years working in retail, I worked at this one company in Manhattan. And I remember sitting in a meeting and one of the store managers was telling a story about their recent experience at a shipping courier. Long story short, they were there for personal reasons. Now, while he was at this shipping courier, the shipping service, he had perhaps what he described one of the worst experiences ever. So much so that it forced him to make 2 decisions. The first one was that in his personal life, he would never use them again to ship anything, and if he could control it, to receive anything either. The second decision that he made was for the company that I was working for. He decided to change the shipping courier from that same one, the one that he was interacting with in his personal time, to one of their competitors. He decided to switch it, not just out of spite, but just because of the fact that he understood that potential customers would have to interact with that same courier, and he didn't want them to have any type of experience with the brand that wasn't up to the highest standards. And having an external factor such as the shipping provider that they use interfere with the customer experience was not something that he wanted to do. This, I feel like, could be applied if you're creating something, whether it's a product or a service that's already pre-existing, that you feel like you could improve upon. Take those experiences or interactions with the pre-existing service and see what works for you, see what doesn't work from you, and then plan and act accordingly. There's a lot of useful information that can be found in all of those types of experiences. So just use what you can and repurpose what you can't. Abandon everything else. All right, so number 5. This is something I actually had to learn the hard way. Waiting until everything is just perfect can actually hinder your growth. So I actually had an idea for a podcast in 2018. Before then, I was working on a blog and I was doing a whole bunch of other stuff. It took me 2 full years to get here. And the podcast itself went through several different iterations. I was really trying to figure out the format, and it wasn't until late last year, late 2019, that I settled on something. Whereas the topic for the last 3 episodes, the list of hip hop groups that haven't released a project, that topic came to me in 2017. Now, of course, over the years, I got more information. Maybe I added a group or 2, but for the most part, The episode as you heard it stayed largely the same. And even after deciding on the podcast format, I should have come out with it then and there, but I was still thinking, nah, there's this piece of gear I need to get, or nah, I gotta wait till I get a new microphone or a new lens or a new camera or a backdrop, or do I want to have guests or whatever the case may be. I was basically delaying the release of this podcast just because I felt that there's some things that I could add, and there's just one more thing that I needed. And once I got it, there was something else I decided I needed to get. What was happening in the meanwhile, the people who I did tell that I was starting a podcast, they were anticipating it for a while until their interest sort of died out. Understandably so. I completely respect that. And one of the other things that happened, or one of the things that didn't happen or couldn't happen as I didn't release the podcast, was I wasn't able to accurately gauge what was working and what wasn't working. And that's pretty much why I decided to pull the trigger and just start with the idea that I had first, or the oldest idea and the one that I was babying the most. You know, I decided that I was going to trust in my ability to create, and I would also be afforded the opportunity to see what it is that I have in my head that actually works when I put it into practice, and what it is that didn't work. Now, one of the things that I wanted to make sure of was, especially considering the fact that this was an idea that I was proud of, I wanted to make sure that it came out in the most perfect way possible. And it probably did. I probably could have done some things better in the last couple episodes, but I'm still super happy with how they came out. And what I was able to get, there were a lot of people who were reaching out to me and telling me what they liked about it and what they didn't like. And again, these are useful pieces of information that I'm super happy that I was able to get. And also, I needed to trust in my ability to come up with ideas that were just as good, or if not better. That was one of the things that I really needed to do. And releasing that episode first is holding me to that belief that I can actually come up with more great things, and it's not just a flash in the pan situation. All right, so number 6, moving on. Speaking of people reaching out to me, being open to constructive criticism, or being as open to constructive criticism just as much as being open to positive reviews. I'll tell you this, a 5-star review with no comment has less value than a 2-star review with justification for that rating. Constructive criticism can give you 2 things. One, it gives you an idea of the things that you may need to work on, depending on who's giving the feedback and how it is that they're approaching giving that feedback. If it's like, yo, your shit is trash, that doesn't really give me too much information. Whereas if it's something like, yo, these are the key areas in which you can improve, or these are certain things that I was expecting could have been better. That's so much more helpful, and that's so much more valuable, that information. So that's the first thing it can give you, feedback. The second thing is it can give you an understanding that the person who is giving you the feedback may have been looking to be satisfied or enjoy whatever product or service that you're offering, and they're willing to take time out of their day to give you reasons as to why they didn't fully enjoy that product or service. 2 very valuable commodities. And I've received a lot of useful feedback, so shout out to y'all. I'm hoping that you girls and guys continue seeing the improvements that I put into this podcast. And if there's anything that needs to improve, any shortcoming, anything like that, please definitely point it out. And the number 7 key idea that I learned while making this podcast is that an incredible amount of discipline and consistency is needed to yield high quality results. So during one of Denzel Washington's acceptance speech, I believe this was for an NAACP award, he gave a really powerful speech, but he said two things that resonate with me to this day. And I'll read them. The first one is, quote, "Without commitment, you will never start, but without consistency, you will never finish." The second thing that he said was, quote, "Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship." Two very impactful statements to me. Interpret that how you will, but I say that to say this. Perhaps the biggest reason why I waited so long to release Underground Genius, as well as begin or start Vagrant by Sunset, which is my media company, is because of the amount of work that I knew was necessary in order for me to achieve the things that I set out to do. I knew that it takes a lot of hard work, consistency, and discipline to achieve those things. And earlier, I wasn't really ready to accept those responsibilities. I'll be totally honest. I'll be totally honest with you. And breaking old habits, that was also something that I was struggling with. You know, the laziness, I would say, or I can say it was laziness because I'm in full control here. I can start recording whenever I want to. I can stop recording. I can edit this. I have to do all of these things. So I know if it's within arm's reach, I'll just pick it up whenever I get around to it. And that's not really a good mindset to have, especially if you are catering to an audience that is looking forward to your product or service. That's a disservice to them. This has been one of the biggest character flaws that I had to overcome. And to instill this sense of discipline, what I had to do was first identify the reasons behind my retrogressions and my stagnation and make sub-goals. That way I'd be able to attack my larger goal in a very formulaic way. Something that is easily attainable. If I can mind the pennies, the pounds would mind themselves, as the saying goes. So that's it. Those are the 7 key ideas that I've pretty much learned, and I'll go through them one more time. Number 1, clearly identifying your goals and communicating them to your audience. Number 2, doing too much or setting overambitious goals may yield low quality results. Number 3 is invest as much as you need into whatever it is that you do need, but understand that the most expensive thing doesn't equate to instant success. Number 4 is there's no such thing as a true waste of time. Reinforce the things that work and repurpose the things that don't. Number 5, waiting until everything is just perfect can actually hinder your growth. Number 6, be just as open to constructive criticism as you are to positive feedback and positive reviews. And the last thing is an incredible amount of discipline and consistency is necessary in order for you to yield high quality results. So before I end today's episode, I know I said that this podcast went through several iterations. One of them basically saw the premise of one of the earlier iterations for the podcast was I'll record conversations between me and one of my homies, Byron. Shout out to Byron. And one of the things that the spin, I guess you can put on it was I was at home recording while he was at work right before his retail job that he was working at the time, right before they opened up. The conversations were not appropriate for work by any means, which is one of the reasons why perhaps none of those episodes will ever see the light of day. And it was a failed format ultimately just because it was contingent upon our schedules lining up, but then it was also depending on how long he would keep the job. Spoiler alert, he didn't keep the job for that much longer after I started. Now, what I can tell you is that those recordings did help me identify what works and what may not have worked. So what I'll do right now is I'll play a clip. I'll play a couple of clips, as a matter of fact, from earlier recordings, and then I'll wrap this thing up.
I remember this conversation so vividly. You think I could be making all of this up by detail? Like, are you
Yes,
serious?
because I do that all the
my
time as well.
God. Oh, you a liar. You're a good
Yes,
liar.
I
man.
am a liar.
I'm not so good.
What is it called though? No, I never said I wanted 2 braids.
All right, bro.
Honestly,
For the
wait.
sake of us recording this, you never said that.
Okay, wait.
I know the real truth.
No, oh no, like on the chance that I did say it, remember that's still part of the era where you weren't supposed to take, and you're still really not supposed to take everything I say seriously. I'm serious when I say I want the braids, but if I said that, I would have said, wait, what?
You just split up eras of how we speak to each other?
Yes. It was an era.
This is the new era.
No, there was an era in which we stopped talking over a pants skirt.
Yes.
That's also a very funny story, by the way.
That's a very old era.
That's what I'm saying. There was that era. There was the era when I came back and I was dating.
That's vintage Kyle.
That's not vintage. Don't say it's vintage Kyle. Don't say that.
That's vintage Kyle because that's when you was like mad. That was respectful Kyle. I don't know who you are now, but he was mad respectful.
What are you talking? I'm still respectful. What are you talking about?
Yeah, like we couldn't call women bitches in front of you. Like that kind of Kyle. That's a different Kyle.
You still can't. Like, not really.
Yes, we can. What are you talking about?
Not really.
Oh my God. All right. This is the new era. You a liar. Nigga, this is the new era. You a liar, dog.
What are you talking about?
You a goddamn lie.
Nah, bro, we recorded too.
What's up with you?
This is Media Kyle. Oh, I finally figured out a name for the podcast that I think.
But you're not going to tell me.
No, I'm gonna tell you.
What is it?
I actually wanna.
Nigga, that shit is ass. I already know that
No. Because I want to properly explain to you why I chose this name.
Nigga, say it first and then explain it. Why you can't be normal? Why are you not normal? What's up with you, my nigga? Oh, nigga, what is up with you? Why can't you just tell me the name of it and then explain it like a regular person,
wait,
bro?
Because I'm still working through the explanation in my head. Yo, let me read you this quote by A$AP Rocky.
Yeah.
When we came in, bro, I'm keeping it 100 with you. Niggas wasn't fucking with New York. Niggas didn't know where we was from because we look like we got gold teeth, we got braids, we got hats, we got all that. Now it's standard, bro. All right, cool. No, that's it. I'm glad that you pointed that out because I found that to be the most confusing part of that entire quote. I'm like, bro, what the
niggas invented hats?
That shit is mad funny. Niggas said we got hats. I got hats. Nigga got hats. And he got that on.
You know, it's more funny to me because you got to deal with that.
What you mean? I don't gotta do with shit.
You listen to that nigga.
Yeah.
That whack nigga.
Okay.
Nigga fucking whack, bro.
Okay.
You listen to that shit.
Okay.
That nigga think he invented hats. Nigga think he invented gold teeth.
Oh man, no, I don't think he. No, what he said.
Hope said this shit. I had a grill in '88. Y'all niggas is late.
Yeah. He didn't say that he invented it. He just said niggas didn't know where we were from because we got all this shit. I don't know what.
Because I was trying to be from Houston.
Yeah, don't say y'all. I'm not part of y'all. They.
You ASAP mob, nigga.
No, I'm not ASAP mob. Stop doing that, bro. What do you mean the way I end the podcast?
I finished listening to the 4th episode on my way home today.
What you think?
It was really good episode, bro. Like for real. That's my favorite episode by far. I like the way I didn't really like what you
end though with the private club. I think you could have done more for the private club.
Yo, what could I listen, man? Hold on. We gonna
we can talk about it.
We're gonna talk about that for sure off camera.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, if you haven't realized it yet, right now on the line is in fact Lord Byron. Say what up to the people.
Yo, what's good, man? My nigga Kyle podcast. I'm on this shit. You know what I'm saying? First guest shit, man. So anybody that come after me, I ain't never mind.
All right. Can you not threaten people who are listening to this? Like, what's wrong with you, B? All right.
No, I'm just saying, everybody come after me. I know y'all my sons. I was the first nigga on Kyle podcast. So when this shit
that's a fact.
To 1 billion streams, y'all niggas already know.
That's a fact. You definitely appreciate it, King. That's pretty much all I got today. I'm hoping that you are able to take something away from this podcast. Whether it was one of those ideas or a laugh or whatever the case may be. And as always, definitely reach out to me at KXYES. Yo, I was thinking about going by KX, by the way, Byron. What you think about that? KX.
I hate it. I fucking hate it.
All right, I'm going to go back to the drawing board and we gonna figure it out. Until then, my name is Kyle S. and this has been Underground Genius. Once again, I got to shout out to homie Action Banks for letting me use this beat that's playing right now, as well as Homebody, which I played earlier in the episode. To find more information about him, hit him up for some beats or just see more of his work, you can definitely hit his socials up. On Twitter, it's going to be at action_bank, BANK. And on IG, it's going to be at action_banks, BANKS.